Obviously that day he had started to pray. As a battle it was dawning. I shall not allow outside influences to affect me that have nothing to do with me, he chanted later that morning. How easy it can be to get sucked into other people's stories, lost in a sector. So that line right there is between author and actor, and here the sound sort of swells. Dear brother, remember that along with money, fear is the biggest downfall of men. And you've forgotten yourself, of course, for how easy it is to become what one always opposed, right? When the poet awoke to write in the mid of night, he knew this, that he scratched the back that scratched his. Grand, but he took the arm of those who took the hand. The three states of being unfolded, burning the coal, body of time, divinity of mind, eternity of soul, sieving the seeds to be sown. Invite the lone guest. When one asks and receives, then one must give with what one does best. Know it, and this was the life of the poet. Sat opposite, one calm, one agitated by the fireside. The calm one raised his finger to silence the agitated one's incoming diatribe, then spoke. You're conscious of the saying, fortune favors the brave, I do hope. The agitated brother nervously nodded his head. A helping hand was extended and you nearly cut it off instead. The agitated brother's stomach sank with the mood. We'll say no more about this and you'll drop that act too. Now, conduct yourself in a normal manner, is that understood? The words were conservative. The agitated brother nodded meekly in the affirmative. The breaking of bread. Starting to speak, the calm brother silenced him again with a gentle shake of his head. In between, a gulf, a sea. So he bridged with a hug and asked, now a cup of tea. The agitated brother was silent, then spoke with no hope. I severed the hand. The calm brother stirred, then sat as the storm gathered within, growing grand. He let the silence hurt, while brushing out imaginary wrinkles from his shirt. The calm brother would be remiss not to admit that his heart was heavy, yup. And if this week had a title, it would be Don't Get Your Hopes Up. All you had to do was sign against the vast doubt. But now, dear brother of mine, you must be cast out. You know, I had forgot all about there being a traitor amongst the family. I just thought it would never be you who couldn't guarantee a brave character to play, the coward servant. But you're well aware that the consequences of one's actions are out of my hands, so I hope the money was worth it. You'll now be used as an example of how not to be. Continuing, it's funny, as soon as I opened my heart to you and your friends, you drove a blade into it. Yourself, the devil, the apprentice, you'll make a good band together, no excuses. But don't expect me to buy your music. He had been working on this jigsaw for 20-some years, stored in the glass cupboard. The picture he put together was that of Da Vinci's imagining of the Last Supper. Finally, the concluding piece to go in place was that of Judas's face. Looking through photos of his brother, he had always wondered why his face was so distorted. He put it down to a fault in the camera, but uncertainty reared. Why then were everyone else's faces perfectly clear? The snake of Eden has betrayal from those whose words you trusted. Perversion suited the snake of Eden as Judas, the joker as betrayer. The fool was born to a bowl of blood, and in it his brother's head was dead much. He arrived at the premises to find awaiting the army of men that had been assembled in his absence since when word got out. Glances shot out as he walked through the din. He noticed how all the men looked like replicas of him. His arrival had been whispered, but the men were told to disregard he even existed. Climbing the podium he spoke, the key to escaping this world is to create your own. Cheers rang out, the energy was sizable. The plan had been to create an army in which he was unrecognizable. That although he was the leader, he could be mistaken for a soldier, and a soldier for he. They all even had the same name, Buddy. This way the army could be distributed throughout the world in divisions, and he could move through them, avoiding recognition. Some wondered if it was even he now speaking. The trouble was, it might be a spokesperson pulling a double bluff. Had it even been him that had arrived, or had he been there all along, working side by side, building whatever it was they were building? No one knew, and guesses led to apologies. A weapon, a ship, a new technology. The premises was divided into different bays that built the separate parts to be assembled way out the way. Into what though? Those that built were not to know. He hid stories within stories, behind language and with lore. See? He allowed others to nurture what he created, thinking it was their creation, but it was he. Him. Observing from the dim. Trials of the dark cave had been so wild, he dared not call them to mind. So when sisters of the cave approached, he averted his eyes until one spoke. The darkness of the cave does not one need to penetrate, but simply gaze upon. Inhaling, he saw the treasures within the shadows while a haze had shone. Then it was gone. The swaggering arrogance of the ignorant, who know best with desired surety, but little do they know they'll be stripped to the bone as the process requires purity. The elder brother, but only by a bit, liked to stay indoors and read and was prone to ponderment. The younger brother, but only by a fraction, preferred to be out in the world and amongst all the action, to dwell in the realm of lust, with its smells and sounds and scenes. But to dwell in the realm of love is with feeling. The magician only existed for those who never stopped believing in magic. When the uninitiated seen the future, they were cursed to spend the rest of their days waiting for it to happen. But it never did, and life's gone in a snap. What Pan stood for put men into a nap. The three sins of man, the two roads, route one. When faced with choice, that with the greater risk will have the greater outcome. Spinning green, one is mistaking man for an animal if they believe violence be a virtue of masculinity. Real men are the kind to seal before becoming ghosts in the sheets who speak from behind the veil. Those who graduate get to burn the temple in which they learn down to nothing. So if one didn't know, they would think, they know nothing. Ain't that something? A comfort to the everborn. Recent evidence has been found by archaeologists of an ancient three-faced god. The item on earth depicted a young boy not fresh from birth, a fearsome warrior taking a stand, and a grey-bearded wise old man, all within the one body in three states. The inscription at the base roughly translates as, the lonely path leads to the man no father can create. It was said to relate with running accord to a story called The Book of the Sun and the Sword. A sign stood by the side of the road reading, "Beware, poets roam these lands." Scattered underfoot, copies of revealing leaflets. That's why these residents kept their fences high, easier for concealing secrets. Or was that lies? Thankfully the sisters of sanctuary go forth, for they took the sick away to plague the sun no more. Be mindful of that tone, lest you end up face down in the mud, as those with sharp tongues risk cutting their mouths and choking on the blood. So step careful, friend, I know the secrets you hide, and if your attitude is not swiftly rendered, your secrets will have no place to hide. A human collage at the hands of the one once called Thomas. They say, that was a spell of Medea, once told. So when peering out into the world, mistake not those personal hells of others for one's own. Arriving at rock bottom, he hadn't been here since 18, back when the world was new and he was trying to make one out of two. Those boats would sail through the first half of life usually encountered the storms of the second. Those which survived the first, although battered, usually arrived home in the second. Forgiveness and understanding that the May King still sat upon his throne, but he would soon be exposed for the nasty things he had done. It seemed in the end truth ruled supreme, and when his past caught up, that was the end of the May King. A riddle for you to see. If she was the future men wished for, an undercover boss and the sister of the landlord, who was she? Well, those who dwell in a world divided look upon a world as one lot and say, that is not how the world is, as theirs is not. He hurt until pain was a pleasant swarm, froze till warm, the earpiece dinged, get dirty, you're too clean. The hours tick-tocked, fumes of Mars from nostril plumes. He ravaged the goddess who smiled but looked shocked too. The ripped dress, breathless whispers of yes. A lust feast when one becomes the beast, so cease, no. The acid fire blazed as placid eyes glazed, for man must know what he was to see how far he came to be what he is. And so wrote the fool on that day of the bull. The man who cannot do will never know Xenia Xanadu. So it was he who held the keys to the paradise zone. He just needed to welcome it into his home. It had been constructed long ago, but the mechanisms were in need of some soap. Now it was ready, the final slate. A reminder to remember that one's words create. When he worked in the theatre, he saw the bold plan. He clocked in at dawn as an old man. When he worked in the school, he gave away his toys. He clocked in at dusk as a young boy. When he worked in the factory, he put on his jeans. He clocked in at noon and was somewhere in between. A cup filled with tea, upon which the name, flag and colours of Greece. A reminder of his journey there to get this, the saucer on which it sat underneath red Olympus. Between the worlds of finance and art, a broken bridge sorely lay. He returned home from work each night, covered in oil and clay. The usurper had stood with the head of the king in his hand, but behind him, drawing a blade, the king's beautiful sister did stand. And this was why behind every man of stature was a woman more powerful than most men could imagine. The spicy sort, prone to serve the kind of sauce only served by a final boss. Apertures blinked in the ether like light boring on through, little flashes of freedom and the wonder of songs anew. The bard had blew, expelling Zara who? once cast out the village, now calm with introvert peace. He avoided suspicious objects while swimming in the sea. The house he bought came with a cellar that echoed human slavery, so he cleaned it out and painted the walls a lovely shade of green. And he done what the father never could do, and although now knew, he still chose not to reproduce. The carpenter held the sharpener and gasped in horror at the gore-glistening edge. But he knew to honour the suffering which sharpened men to a pristine end. For there was no better tool to write well, no matter what those who used the knife said. The middling who work to survive frown at those whose only job is to stay alive. And those who work for fun look on and take notes from the side. The cessation of breath, the prolonging of life, to enter a void of such silent respite. The servers are up and running steady. Okay, player one ready. The first time a naked lady was gazed upon, she then became the game he would maze upon, until arriving back to the day before he ever saw the other's naked form. He stretched his arm behind him, the wound was still sore. Oh dear brother, you fell so far I don't even know who you are anymore. The veil fell with you and off flew the mask too. A bloody hand and bag of coins, my only memories of you. As children they pressed their ears to the church walls outside, listening to the torturous naming ceremony entitled the death christening. In the distance a flute played, so their quivering lips settled as they knew this was a good day. To the melody they mimed along, the beat of one's heart awaiting words for the chorus line to sing in time with the song. Now, let's stop for a second. If life be an echo of the source, be a source for the echo. It took a few goes to infanticide oneself, but finally over Easter the alchemist alchemized the egg. He was asked to list the bullet points from the test. The dark key of Lido, truth and the understanding of it. The longest vice, the ones with coiled hair, right? The confessor, death, keeps speaking secrets and the length one goes to keep them. Brother, why could you not just be as you were with me? Brother, why did you become what you did around her? Brother, why revert to boy when we had started the process of creating a man? Brother, why the lies? Why the stories and untruths created to raise a brow? Brother, why? He replied, because that is I. The portrait one paints where love glitters is never the true representation of the sitter. Love, the veil, hiding, the vile. Those who matricide, spit on earth and curse over it all. Oh dear brother, is this the reason why you could not find peace when faced with agents of the greatest mother of all? Sons who idolized the father constructed with lies. The superman who stank of whiskey and died, and at his graveside the morning cold but sunny tomb inscribed, I am the reason you forsaken mummy. And you thought yourself a man in his eyes. Stupid. He still saw you as the mistake they went through with. So consider this the annihilation. Now hope's failed. And stand where you are while my tailor cuts off these coattails. But what's new? He sang, I'll always love you. Taught him magic, the mother taught him truth. The maiden walked beside him through hell. Although all separate, each one could be three, and all three could be one as well. At the bottom of which was the Morpheus Lake, the king of the dreaming, not in sleep but awake. And there the plan was to converse with Nostradamus. Once found, he spoke elated. The prophet does not predict the future, he creates it. But warned, observe those of unvirtue who may wish to usurp you. The devil's downfall was vanity and gossiping. Judas's was a lack of courage and a stubborn zeal. The apprentice's downfall was that he refused to believe anything he didn't deem to be real. The son was only ever meant to love the mother of all women, and not all the women who came after her, for the mother was all women. There was a devil before Laszlo, he with vaginal mouth, who whispered, "Rub upon me and see how good it feels, little sister. You be the girl and I be the boy, have a look." And the boy did, so he became a devil too. And sometimes in dreams the boy found himself in between the seams of the dwelling long abandoned by that devil. Outside a rainy morning night, in reflection he realized he had grown in height on his right side. He wrapped up and ran to his father's car as the rain sliced. Navigating the streets, those dark-haired boys with mischief eyes tried to make him crash, but he didn't. Let's go back. The first devil was the introduction of the other. Hello, sexual health. The departure from self to his, from pillow to fist. The once desert dweller now lived with the fish. From imagining to image, static to moving. And here enters Lilith with her bags to move in. Her, of the seminal storm. Her, the amalgamation of the above in feminine form. Her, found in hedges and nags. Her, now the first devil in drag. He smiled behind a lipstick grin as the boys chased the girls he sung original sin. Then entered Laszlo, the old devil himself in his prime. But that's a story for another time. His first wife was beautiful, but as much as he studied her, he could just not stop looking at her. The ever-changing dame, with so many variations of the same. And although he had many lovers, he always came back to her, his first wife, until she had to die, and he had to return to the darkness behind his eyes, where lay no scents, sounds or sights, only feeling, only night. And the dam did not burst forth, and the boy was dry, and he was as the priestess of high, encoiled in the conduit that glistened fair, and into the quantum ocean he did sit and stare, and upon the plumed serpent he did ride, and those who caught a glimpse could see it in his eyes. But then it was time to life to come back, which could be symbolized as a reverse sound effect. Wet those corners, friend, if you hold your fingers dear. A man of your appetite should watch his mouth when the black face of death lingers near. The thought of growth that got him thinking, was it just him growing, or were the houses shrinking? And the grapevines which rapped, they also talked, see? The whispering said that the abbot was freed. Phew, but more after. Now the perverted father with his hidden filth, and the innocent son of curious wit. And here we have, if stretched just right, the first case of abuse in one's life. It was assert he'd one day play Padre Dirt. Just as the space between echoes can be more or lesser, sometimes the answer takes a while getting back to the questioner. If one only says 3 things a day to set the mood right, let them be good morning, good afternoon, and good night. From a book of lessons in a chapter called Blessings. The cycle of light, new moon to waxing, illuminating from the right. The hearkening dead, full moon to waning, darkening from the left. Before breaching the threshold, he was told 3 wishes awaited, but what would be chose? He thought hard, smart and bold. 1. Lifelong vitality of body, mind, soul. His eyes moved under lids. 2. Effortless wealth from innate gifts, all-encompassing but concise. 3. a tranquil end after a fulfilled life. Very well, sir, the threshold guardian said, opening the door to where the path had led. Then he entered. Listening against the wall of the temple, he heard the gathering chant, Eon, Eon, praise Eon. In a rising and faltering slant, the range grew grand. That must be what they called God here in this strange new land. In hindsight, it was the subtler levels of hell one mistaken for life. The boy had left the house and song in which he dwelled amongst its words for oh so long, but never two. The melody and harmony at the same time were what brought everything in a line to the new. As the spring sun hung in the sky, lighting beneath, he turned to look at his shadow, which was the shape of a leaf. And on that day when the veil was thinnest, the band got down to business, as his credit from the universe would shortly cease to be, currently sitting at 0.03. The old devil himself, blemishes anew. Now he could be seen as Kathmandu, through gritted teeth with lethal blade. Beyond the forest of frustration lay the peaceful Everglade, and wherever he did stroll was cleaned, and underfoot truth was seen. Assuming one's lunar health, the approaching spotlight is usually brighter than the spotlight itself. Then the abbot appeared, the brother who the devil and Judas claimed to be. But the rainy screen was now squeaky clean, and that was the sign to start anew. So he began the next day at round 2. On those days he found the solace. He stirred, glared, and pined for the still and the kill of the forest. So tourists beware when he's bereft of Hilaire. Upon completion of the manuscript, the majority was redacted by the board. His head ached and blood poured when he had to retract the horns. But be still, my lords. What a glorious thing when music and poetry in their combining fill thy thoughts. Concerning ocular issues lately, it looked like someone had pressed the setting for HD. Nudge up the contrast +3. Actors and sets appearing as real as could be. And scene. He sat in the room with the old earth and talked. Her friend entered, angry as such, actually disgusted. Speaking of injustice, he stood up to leave, but Dizzy had to sit back in his seat. His earpiece spoke, don't leave until the integration is complete. So he sat and watched the scene play out, in with the occasional chime. Finally in his ear, well done, now you can come back to time. At last, no more haunting a future from a haunted past, and in this lake he basked, floating naked fast. Then the old Earth's friend walked out candid, and it seemed that the high definition has switched back to standard. He ruminated, let's see, maybe it's the configuration of 3, and vaguely recalled similar words out the mouth of JC, his friend, in a film on the TV. He had helped her with her lines, but remained unseen. She, the starlet off the double feature screens, from a mattress on the floor to an actress world adored. He was happy with his hand in her assent. Now back to the present. With the Troll King working away, through suspicious eyes he was told to take an early day. Good. Back home he travelled to Rome just to sample its food. These words is a painless commotion. Later that night he led with endless devotion. So open, oh soaking. Well, here's hoping, kid. He had Christ back to earth with an open lip and broken rib. For a year he wandered and cast off his hell, regardless of how many grasping hands grabbed from the well. With bold respite he talked to the old earth about the old divides, and observed with glasses how they varied through the classes. tongue pestering. Some wounds fresh, some fully healed, some festering. Inside a thought flirred. This was to be expected from an island so recently embroiled in tribal warfare. The old earth coughed, then checked her vitals. Content, she said, how she now wished for the two sides to band together and get rid of the new arrivals. A crayon smile and painted on eyes, sedative. It seemed even in times of peace, for some there was always an enemy. The old earth's friend entered the room again. He stood aside. Sitting, she conversed on topics of sexual abuse and suicide. A grim reality for some. Between words, a dark friction. Soon the conversation veered to the escalation of drug addiction. From the sidelines he listened and nodded accordingly. Tuts and jeers, expelling the appropriate sounds to match the corresponding atmospheres. He allowed himself to open and gazed as the lady talked of infernal strife. In his mind's eye he received imprints about the lady's internal life. Moving, he found the head slick and slow. All those frivolities with Victor Doe. Speaking of who, he heard his voice between lines. Stop right here and live a bit, man. Hasty. By that he meant get wasted and hook up. He looked up from singing a song, and there was the wide-eyed girl who'd been avoiding his eye all week long. Between them a smile grew. Had they met in a dream? Was she violet, lilac or purple in the Rainbow Girl team? To seek out the sirens or the daughters of Iris? On closer inspection, these Iris. The mermaid eyes, the sister of the sea, maybe in disguise. His disguise a shell that give a ghastly roar. No one knew him as the poet until he put his glasses on. Bob. And seemingly it was the season of the crab, which he seen upon the moon carved his art in the sand. And rest. The crabs cuddled upon his stomach and chest. With a start he quirked. Heart is an anagram of earth. The phone buzzed. He answered by asking, where did the safe home was? And there he spied on the golden lion and more. Roar. The old earth wheezed. The axe had grinded to zero. He glanced at the book she was reading about accidental heroes. The Troll King croaked from his home abode. All are working now. And the mood changed as quick as so. He did not appreciate surprises so close. But if 2 gold coins left to pay, he couldn't say no. He breathed deep and blinked slow. It only took the smallest stone in the road. It was structure. He was a man of structure, and unseen disturbances were too disruptive. Time must be ordered and agreed, not a moving ladder. But alas, these were the woes of the son of Saturn. But maybe this was a good thing, for an easy one gets comfortable and forgets about leaving. Leave it to lands new in the arms of destiny. Blessed be. After a bit of the old thinking business, he decided to stay with the Troll King in the old earth until around Christmas. That was 5 months or so from now, and he could do it somehow. His memory crackle ecstatic, his mother thematic. Oh my God, you are so dramatic. Right? Right. His eyes did gleam, as that seemed to mean that he and Victor Doe made some team. The Richter roll decided to burst. He floated on music unheard and hid from the future behind his own words. After work, he swam with the mermaid through oceans brave. She showed him the spoils of subterranean caves. Dark. Outside the Troll King's domain, the fairy realm did reign, and it was from here the fairy princess came to him. He smelt her, sniffing. If she wasn't at the foot of his bed, she was in it with him. The old earth took a lot of heat, but for the Troll King she was just the go-between. Speaking of who, there was something about him that didn't sit right. Maybe a mistype. Clues? He's up to something suspicious and projects suspicions on you. He perused the cruise brochure out of the blue to see which land he would next stop off to. The entry to heaven depended not on what they said of it. It wasn't how good one lived, but of life what one made of it. Coach Redmond Bull. gruff Scottish brogue. Now questions were answered with, "I didn't know," so we didn't ask. Such sass. The old grey men bumbling around the world no longer theirs, best be hanged with their bags for life. "You'll be an old grey man too sometime," was said. He replied, "Not if I dress in drag." The day before, crab pinchers in the chest restless. Today he lay with the breastless. The bathing, the new, the maiden, the seated. They talked best where no words were needed. Stone-faced, the place was set. He was somewhere between a deep-sea diver and a space cadet. He and Victor Doe went on the ice and bore a hole. Throwing down a line, they dragged up a man from another time. He came round rightly. His first words were, "By gee." Upon defrosting, his dream bleared. "Check the ancestral line and all will become clear." His words filled the air up as he moved from the black to the silver era. "You would have bet not delirious plan," the gravel-voiced, goat-headed, serious man. Born alive, the one from the other side, who died too soon, the sun to his moon, unknown from dusk to dawn, but not yet from noon, but soon. So he done what most found impossible to do, the rising of the sun twice in one day. Phew. Way back when, he was born in the corner of a room where the drug-induced bride was being taken by the groom. After, as the bleeding seeped through, the beloved lay sleeping and he whispered, "You'll be needing me soon." He and the May King had been friends, but soon no more. Now his friend wanted one more night in full control, also known as zombie mode. He told me so, I seen the scene. He was full of drink and GHB, naked and torn, and that was how Jesus was born. No Mary or Joseph or stable or feast, just a Friday night in a house in the east. He lost his voice to find his vocal. Though greatly dissuaded at first, he decided to speak like the locals, and for this he was known. But it was also a sacrifice. For at 33 he died. Then 13 years later he was brought back to life, Frankenstein. The astrologist sat in the red tent surrounded by flowers. As the baby crowned, she took note of the time and position of stars. And so, on the 22nd of July at 9:56 in the morning, the once queen was reborn as king. The throne to which he returned had been many years in the making, and those who had kept it warm were now told to take a vacation sooner than later, lest their heads be taken like those who outstayed their welcome. From heights higher, fishing for cert, he sat in the lab and caressed white fire which had returned from the sea. To be free, it tapped out notes for a song entitled He Is Me. The fountain with boundless bliss, he reminisced about those strange lands with Karmasutric mountainous monuments. With their rulers he shared eye-space telepathically. They told him which words might grace the self-computed code of one's MySpace. The vultures beckoned with the cultural reference, and above the corpses of a bunch of heifers they circled the heavens. Bolder now, they swooped down to scavenge the remains of the golden cow, but shuddered, retracting beaks when all they found inside was butter, and nothing else mattered. For the sake of banter he had climbed so hard he shattered the rungs on Jacob's ladder. So don't feast on beef if the bacon's fatter, it'll end in juddering tears and bubbling snatters. Hold the rope and exclaim the sentence with an "I told you so" okey doke. Hacking a furball, he was sort of careful when the intercourse was more than verbal. stretching boundaries, testing elasticity, as the once serpent was now a sword that channeled electricity, binding the old while finding one soul. At night he roamed in the cold, mining for gold. The water shattered. He awoke the next morning on the kitchen floor, wondering what had happened. The turning of Hermes had sealed his fate, and the gilded blade, bloody now gleamed with hate, but dripped with gnosis. The ones who know their own ghosts know this the mostest, so we'll say no more. But don't ignore the neon sign that flashes above the day-glow store, for within treasures lie. He gazed upon these oral structures with a measured eye. His syntax once stolen, his language was laundered. So the shepherd sauntered the sacrificial sheep in to be slaughtered. The saving grace, and in the blood they bathed. The audience rose to their feet as the duo had saved this place again. Deciphering language in his mind like a game of Scrabble, he secured a 0 hours contract in the Tower of Babel. For clarity, he felt the metal that seemed soft. It hardened under pressure, so he seized the oar and cut the stream off.
All that was left was all that was heard. The morning grew light with the sound of the birds, who sung their own songs in their own words.
And before the traffic came to make them flee, it was asked, who was he? The reply, he is me. Ignoring dreams led to a death died gorier. It was only in the extended version of life he saw the scenes that tied the story up. The earpiece croaked. You'll know what you need to, and what you don't, you won't. They starved the seers of sight to harvest tears, as those in power enslaved those whose power they feared. The Cyclops Jesus spoke in Old English and weird. Gaze upon me now, close thy lids, and see thy symbol in thy mind's eye. And they did, and they seen, and they talked of the sighting. Once a gross man, now a ghost, most frightening. He roamed the rooms of his once home and asked, who lives in a house like this? The feminist married the recovering misogynist. Under forbidden robes, he studied her strange flora like a botanist. The exterior bark and bite intimidating, guarding the library inside of archetypal imagery. Lingual decisions descend from somewhere thought to be heard, clearing the flame, so if men be ideas, consider him the fisher of them. Since their stars met with starkness, he saw the same part of he and the mother in the Prince of Darkness. He rose with the wood pigeons to conduct his experiments, certainly, as currently the lab was only open in the mornings from Monday to Thursday. He read the handwritten list of those he wished deceased, and aimed the bow of his ship to the undiscovered lands of the east. The dark moon in his name came, but he didn't. But it didn't stop him planting seeds in it, until he did. Then he bid his babies farewell, and in the stairwell he stood, smelling the stale stench of booze, and observed how Lazarus now grew in twos, one more dominant than the other. Ah yes, just like he and his dear brother. The builder reminded himself before his future endeavor that the houses were built, he just had to put them together. Entwined in the bodies of Spartans like the spider from Lullaby, they led him to love, and all the other noise was nullified, at least for that brief moment. But that's all one needs to remain hopeful. Live from the dream, life is always as it's been in between the big sleep. Live from the dream, from the self-imposed coma to where death is but a comma. A man of many masks and monikers, be them flesh, costume or sonically. He who ventured down from the mountain grand to earth, to expound wisdom like a fountain to the children of the south end of the spectrum, where black and white coloured the prism, and the prisoners were sectioned and done away away with their necks hung. Those who crossed him prayed for a death at the point of his sword and not his pen. Done wishing. Sisters of the process received their red robes upon completion. Take this advice about the boat and don't board. And if you find yourself lost in the forest, avoid the hut owned by the goat lord. He broke the surface and the sky thundered. When dipping into the mysteries, beware reeds that can drag one under. When science failed, they invoked the old ways, of course. The spade rasped through soil with force as the grave digger dug up the corpse. In lore, it was spoken through a tone subs. So to language he offered his words as a token of one's love. A ticking clock, the hastily wrapped box, one containing a key.
I can help with that.
A faceless female voice said from off screen, there would have been no resurrection without the betrayal. The only reason he came back was to end the line like Medea and utterly slay them after taking the vow. But look at him now. On the quill, his brother knew better concerning bleeding of gums. So instead of being greeted with slugs, he was banished behind the beating of drums. Born in a room in a shed out the back, the garage was the set, so be grateful the magic used wasn't black. The cats creep from burrows, the night sky filled with bats feral. The blade he plunged behind the medallion, so at your peril through he indulge your nostalgia. The premises were brutal. When soldiers absconded, they were found with a bullet in their noodle and their body in a ditch. Those with lesser punishments were led to the forest to roam, although with such a small survival rate, most never made it home. On his rounds, he found footprints on the cubicle walls, an announcement over stalls.
Those caught copulating in the back toilets will be exposed and seen by all.
The old earth friend was the first to go, but not the last. Scripted ink on her veins, a name, Tomas. What a laugh, she never even knew it was him. Amid the forest beyond the rim, the goat lord's abode, he either copulated with or devoured the new arrival, sometimes both, simultaneously. The days of austerity now a hazy maybe been. He wished who could say the sickle had tickled, but that would be lies and slander, especially as now it was he who held the handle. A shift came when he thirsted for the ale, and for every soldier sheared, another shaven head appeared, vowing allegiance to the cause. The sight of the goat lord gave a terrible pause. The flood, with bird teeth he sang, I've come to drink your blood. On that day with Victor Doe, he found the pot of gold, buried long ago beneath the rainbow. Under the mask lay the faces of many men, all gold. Sieving the earth defined the name he was given at birth. The craft reflected what the mirror seen, out of time, offbeat, and a little obscene. The story was outstandingly written. The majority demanded fit us in, but nowhere did it say its creator must be a morally upstanding citizen. They called him a devil, as upon his horns the sphere sat haloed. But that was just people's misconstrued conception of what constituted sainthood. The brothers got to the bottom of what the trouble was, and if Judas had a twin, that would have been a double cross. The writing on the wall said, the ship is sinking, written in sort of bold. But the shipmates were unaware that it was their captain who bore the whole. As the hull filled, the craft capsized, screams from the soon-to-be baptized in salt. The band put on a good face, like it or not, and played a number once hot, but now old-timey it went. The vessel so corrupted, best to leave it the old briny. The sea as the sentinel, then a giant octopus reared up and swallowed what was left in its tentacles. The small things that he did that he hadn't done before propelled him on the forward path into the unknown. The wounded healer sailed upon the darkest thoughts of man. Sirens as maidens naked by the boat they swam. He searched for days in that green hell dread, as heaven was found where others dared not tread. So if God is all encapsulating virtues high and lesser, he's not only the loving father, but also the child molester. The old devil himself's heart rate increased at the sound of sirens from coming police. He really should have transferred to USB the hidden course of sex folders stashed on his PC. I told you I see everything. He was already made aware about the moving through in dreams, although did not believe. So everything he thought he'd done in private was there to be seen for those who can see. And the tears he had cried on that day with his bride were not what they seemed to be, maleficent, absurd. The truth and more is that what he saw was a future too horrific for words. With an eye to the past, he seen the vaginal lip devil lighting the gas. And the last thing he saw before going cold was him holding aloft the excrement freshly faced from the bowl. He hastened to never ever use the word forever ever, as who was he to put a full stop wherever ever. The burning bush blazed with orange flames, and a licked more than singed him as he breached within. He stood between worlds and sought songs of the spherical octagon, then lay waste to the fungal bridge that he had once walked upon. Those devils aren't so scary when debagged and sacked, and the pants mummy bought them for Christmas are revealed to be brown up the back. When he focused on the map and let the steam out it had, he washed up in a bay, nude before his captain's hat. He knew the movement of the spheres from the roots to islands steered, fiddling the selection. With each rising and falling of civilizations, he was whittled to perfection. The green witch of Elsinore spotted him on his wanderings. Their eyes met, but she didn't know he knew she was watching him. The seed toiled with 12 stages of development under soil, then 20 more round as it prepared to sprout. Then on the day of the sun, it broke through the ground. Sound. He strolled into the Green Witch's garden and looked around, then took her on the sun chair. The combining of scepter and chalice caused a substantial eruption. The river change was vital, and in unison they chanted his name and given title. He had awoke into the morning grasp of the Dark Mother, no holding back. Her of golden sweat robed in black, whose embrace lasted the longest, and behind her back an army of wild horses. Her perspiration he drunk in gulps, and the rivers did burst from yawning gulfs. Landscape, canyons long, dark and deep, between rolling fields that sidewinded to mountains steep, but soft. Upon her navel she wore the title they had won.
And still
the Dark Mother lay naked, so he, as her server, sketched anatomical drawings with hopes of knowing her further, claiming so be it. He heard others speak of her with the name of Sophia. She was both the giggling baby and its crying mother, counseling herself too as the wise old woman. Cake, flowers and wreaths from the process once known as Thebes. In her kingdom she was called Africa. With ecstatic love she adorned him with a leopard skin and held his hand through the leather glove, saying, "You've got a hold of this." He had just imagined being spoken this the night before and been alarmed, but here he was now in her arms, and there he stayed 3 days in her 3 rooms, then left the next morning to journey anew. And so his wanderings began to the heart, just as first man had struck drums in these parts. With muscles swollen and tongue a golden, fireworks burst overhead. The Dark Mother cried tears of dark red, and they promised to one day meet again. The girl at her side handed him a map, in her eye asserted interest. That was daughter Niami, later to be known as the Furry Princess. start of his travels to praise what he lost, he buried Judas at the mountain base and marked the grave with a cross. Bells and all, he saw the boy who lived in the house of the Green Witch of Elsinore, and studied him to get a sense if it was at his own accord. Whispers about the premises were tinged with horror, as a group of apprentices were seen being led to the forest. The goat lord's stomach rumbled as he sat naked seated. Maybe what was being built was almost completed. Maybe it was done and all, who knows now? The once busy days were like a ghost town. As every soldier had been made aware of, one must be prepared at any minute to die for the cause. The creatures of the forest, oft times called the Fairy Glen, were heard to refer to the goat lord by his birth name of Damien. His appearance made those of Christ cross themselves from the sight, before succumbing to shock and dying before his eyes. Manic, but put simply, the main emotion he stirred in others was panic. He wondered, but settled nowhere, as what comes after is always better. At least that's what he told himself. As such, the sailors shouted, unfurl the sails a touch, and the symbolists cried to the realists, is the world not real enough? At times he had to sit and concentrate his energy like an electric orb, fingers off. Those early August roads sure did cramp the feet up some. His vision returned and head buzzed no more. Whatever it was had passed, and he was as he was before. At dusk's dawn, he sat where the rats mauled the bins and smoked, and knew this plan was turning out to be better than he could have hoped. And that was the cigarette that changed it all.
They're in the water. The ones from space. Molecular science. They're in the water. The ones from space. Molecular science. They're in the water. The ones from space. Molecular science.
He passed through the land of giants, awestruck at the soaring ranges and alpine elevations. Although gargantuan to the eye, within secret valleys subtle beauty did reside. Their leader was Unea, and she brought him in her cave to a hidden vault, and they rested when they came there. She gifted him her impenetrable armor, now built from rock, his appearance, ooh, so alarming. After he did meet an envoy from the land of sky and sea, where gold crops swayed and the roses blossomed pink. They danced and made song, and he seen how her eyes reflected the place she was from. She said her queen would like him to meet her, and marked on his map the directions how to get there. She told him how the realm had been ravaged by intruders, that their natural resources were being pillaged by looters. Before leaving, she warned about the plains, normal to the eye but wild underneath. He journeyed on, finger to map tracing lines, and not only did he travel in distance but also in time. The paint dripped fresh in blood red, 3 letters, 3 dots, SOS. Ale blue from the opulent lands of Juju, sapphire simmering peered in from his behefery. Boundless mouth, lips slack showing tooth, her who was born under goat too. Who married he, born under goat same. Damn, then came a daughter who was born under ram, who married a man born under ram as well. Pregnant? Then, welcome to hell. So one winter's night her waters broke slow, a hairless head appeared with little horns all on show, and here the goat lord was born, forlorn in the blood on the snow. People greeted his arrival with drinks several, but later would find evil needed a big D to be devil. In Act 1 the cast rehearsed each day from 9 to 6. In Act 2 they were sent away to refine their skills. In Act 3, curtains up, the show begins. The first scene they opened with was quite the ride, called A Girl Caught in Time. The second act delved into fantasy a bit, exploring worlds beyond this, called A Boy Crosses the Bridge. Finally, the third, an epic about a certain boss called A Man of the Future and Curtain Call. She waved the flag of States United, once divided in her heart, on her tongue, the States United. The new earth was States United. The pyramids is chapters of one's life in three. Beside them the Sphinx, but only seen for those who have walked on legs 4, 2 and 3. 4, 2, its mouth tore through. He thought delirium had seized thy. It spoke these lines: riddle me this, what is both avian and feline? He searched under eyes, flicking through the files in his mind. Nothing. Then he let his thoughts go blank. You are, he answered joyously in reply. With that the beast, the bricks scraped aside, revealing a mechanical portal that led all the way inside. Walking forth he softly stepped, and there on an altar lay the corpse of himself. His approach awakened it and opened the eyes. From lying it rised, and they both howled, I'm alive! Then the teeth sunk into his neck and blood did flow. His body collapsed to the ground, and the once corpse stripped him off his clothes. Dressing himself, he stepped out into the sun. And the dove and the crow that in the sky did float were swallowed by the eagle, and the three became one. It plunged to the ground and grabbed a snake in its mouth, whose eyes sunk and shrunk to jelly. Both soared. The eagle said, rise up and crawl on thy belly no more. He knew death came for people when it mimicked their appearance, or what they would look like with a bin bag over their faces. With the first autumn chill in the air, wonder gasped, and the old earth passed him gifts to utilize under wraps. It was he who brought change with pockets jingling. Singly within a store, he seen the flesh under the old earth's pinafore. He walked the premises, now bereft of soldiers, and imagined the world with fingers and ears from the explosion. He knew to avoid cliches and meaningless wordplay, and dissected language with the skill of a cybernetic android performing surgery. He held up a mirror to humanity's filth, and they said, that's disgusting. It took 2 goes to breach the loft, but third time lucky, as the saying goes. He was last here with the Dark Mother before hitting the road. Now he shielded the whore of Babylon as angry women pelted her with stones. He was awarded the Medal of the Fox's Heart and the Magic Wand, 2 out of whose tip all this did spew. The moon brimmed through, gold in the sky, opposite the sun below, and into it he put coin 2, 1 to go. Everything's going to plan. When he cleared his throat, he sounded just like the old man. He and Mia crafted a song. She plucked a tune and he beat the drum, and together in unison they sang at the coal hearth.
To the New Testament of the old earth.
It was once that behind every orgasm disaster awaits. For the fisherman was useless until he could master the bait. To induce madness the visions were never meant. The wrong listened, but instead came as story prompts from a land beyond this one, with an L me assigned to say you're always on my mind from a lace sausage. So he offered the holy plant to the water for safe passage. Once he had sang at the Dark Mother, Africa, oh Africa, why have you deceived me? But the deception was he, part of the ploy. Now he was the star of Troy. The full moon ways unwound in his chest benign. Although once thought to be things much more maligned. The date juice had done away with the old. Now Lazarus and his family had more room to grow. The mouth of the future primed to speak on the face of Jupiter, only accessible to those who've held a blade between their lips or something stupider. He came upon the lady of House Drum. She invited him in and they fashioned a song, and so her features he saw in himself there all along. But in a blonde wig she said, "Now you be me." Placing a boutique ring on his finger, she held tight his hand. "This house is now yours and all the outlying land." So it was true, everything was already there waiting for you. To the bedroom on departing she said, "One must always finish what one started." And his arms were young and his chin was square, an under wig, head smooth without a single hair. They dined big and the abundance of meat put him to sleep. When he awoke he wondered where the day had gone. Roaming the rooms of House Drum its lady was gone, until he caught a glimpse in the mirror, and there staring back was her.